Watch this.
The Supreme Court just gave the green light to make a marginalized group more marginalized, which will make coming home for at least one Idahoan overseas a bit more difficult. Idaho's leaders have touted the state's balanced budget and surplus for years. Well, this year, they're about to sing a different tune as shortfall numbers climb into the tens of millions, and maybe more. A surplus of grain, but not enough buyers, and rising costs of everything from fuel to fertilizer. We'll explain how Idaho farmers are weathering one of the most unpredictable years in recent memory.
Discrimination just doesn't feel good. I have not necessarily been singled out, but I belong to a group that has been singled out to be the object of just cruelty. Like, this is a cruel act designed to push people like me out of public spaces to essentially make living in society just that little bit harder.
On day one of his second term, President Trump signed an executive order declaring there are only two genders, male and female, referring to it as a binary assignment determined at conception. What that did was direct the State Department to require all government IDs, licenses and passports, those kind of things, to reflect a person's gender assigned at birth. It overturned a policy that had been in place since 1992 in America and was expanded in 2021 when the Biden administration gave people the option of X on their passports. The ACLU, well, they filed a lawsuit in April. A federal judge blocked the order from being enforced in May, and by June, that protection was expanded to all transgender and non-binary people, while the case worked its way all the way up to the Supreme Court. Well, today, in another shadow docket decision, the justices granted the Trump administration its emergency request to enforce the executive order. Now, back in June, when we had spoken to Cassidy, who you just heard from, a University of Idaho grad who lives in Austria and helps teach English, she'd been issued a passport with a male marker, despite her birth certificate and Idaho driver's license identifying her as female. And when we shared Cassidy's story back in June, because of that preliminary injunction, she did have a chance to reapply for a corrected passport. However, her father told us today, as of 2 weeks ago, she had not resubmitted her application, making the international travel for her more difficult. Today's ruling doesn't end the lawsuit, though. It just gives the State Department the ability to deny applicants choosing their own identity, their own gender marker, while the case continues in the lower courts. But it also gives us a major clue as to how the case will ultimately be decided should it make its way again back to the Supreme Court. Our full story on Cassidy and her passport can be seen at ktvb.com and our YouTube page. Meanwhile, the Idaho legislature is constitutionally obligated to balance the budget. Yes, they pass laws, they oversee state agencies, but how many times do we hear during this legislative session, we only have one job every January, and that's to pass a balanced budget? Well, the state is about to violate its own rules and Constitution, thanks to decreasing revenue and increasing tax rebates. Idaho is expected to end the fiscal year of about $50 million in the hole. And cutting the fat, well, that won't even begin to cut it. It's a good thing Ozempic and Wegovy are now cheaper for those paying cash, because Idaho's budget is about to need those two drugs, except, well, we're out of cash. This week, lawmakers in charge of such things, well, they learned it might be even worse than expected. Here's Joe Paris with an appetizer of what to expect for the 2026 session.
It's going to be an exciting year. Anytime revenues are tight, it gets very interesting.
Certainly a glass half full perspective from the co-chair of Idaho's budgeting committee, JFAC. A team of lawmakers are tasked with navigating a shifting financial reality for Idaho, from flush in cash a few years back to changes since earlier this year.
$375 million swing. And as a result, our projected budget deficit is slightly under what we set the appropriations at. Now, I want to remind the committee, I've been reading a little bit that our budget is unconstitutional, and that this is largely an academic exercise right now.
Keith Bybee is division manager of budget and policy analysis for LSO, and he's correct. The projections have Idaho at a budget deficit. New numbers just presented to lawmakers continue the projected deficit trend.
We have a projected deficit, but that's going to change by the time we finish our work in end of March, early April.
The current number is a deficit projection of about $50 million, and similar numbers in recent months pushed Governor Little to issue an executive order, a 3% budget holdback for most agencies. And projections go deeper, though, if you look into fiscal year 2027.
You would see that estimated ending balance at upside down by over $500 million. So we all know that this is just a point in time, right? It's just all academic and it's on paper right now. We have a lot of decisions to make.
Those decisions will define how the budgeting committee operates.
We have been in a very flush cash position since the pandemic, right? It was inflated money. It was one-time money in many cases. It was surplus. We are not in that position this time. Instead of deciding how much we're going to add to budgets, by and large, we will be deciding how much we will trim. So it will be a very different mindset that we will have.
Legislative leaders like JFAC co-chair Representative Wendy Horman are setting expectations for the budget process. She also made a point to push back on claims that the projected budget situation is a violation of Idaho's Constitution, requiring a balanced budget.
I want to point out that the question of constitutionality, this is not the first time this has ever happened in JFAC, in my experience. And at one point, we consulted with the Attorney General, who referenced a Supreme Court case that said our reserves count as revenue. So in terms of assessing revenue available to the state, reserves count per comments from the Attorney General and a Supreme Court case that I'm happy to share with anyone who's interested. Thank you.
That's our $1.8 billion.
That money, some commonly refer to it as rainy day funds, could be injected into gaps. Fundamentally, though, co-chair Senator Scott Grow outlined the process for budgeting for those agency asks.
Those are requests, and part of our responsibility in JFAC is to deal with requests. And whether or not each or all requests are granted is up to you. So, thank you.
From my perspective, now we're kind of like the good old days. This is where we operated from for many years, and we get to talk about wants versus needs, and we need to talk about efficiencies, and we need to talk about things that really need to get done as opposed to things that people would like to do.
With all that said, there is another factor looming, the one big beautiful bill. It included tax provisions which do translate to a lower revenue for states like Idaho.
If the tax foundation is right and it's a $284 million change, that's largely going to impact the current budget year that we're in.
Lawmakers have the option to not fully confirm with the cuts and provisions from the federal legislation.
We still have the ability to change. And so I expect that by the time we finish session in late March this year or early April, we'll leave town with a balanced budget and a projected budget surplus. And we'll leave the governor, the chief budget officer, the tools to make sure the budget stays balanced through the end of the year.
Time will tell if there is a surplus or not. At minimum, though, again, by state constitution, lawmakers need to set a balanced budget. Brian, I know there's a lot of questions at the State House and around Idaho. How did we get here? And a popular opinion, of course, is that there was $400 million in tax cuts, revenue to the state that has now been given back to the citizens. And it becomes a difference of opinion between people that believe that that money was better used in the pockets of citizens when they hear complaints about rising property taxes. Another factor in this, though, is different tax revenues, sales tax revenues, corporate tax revenues. They have been in some metrics lower than in years past. It was also pointed out that the sales tax revenue is handled differently over the last few years than it was historically, where there are by code and by statute, I should say, specific areas that some sales tax revenue has to go to. It doesn't all just go into one big general fund pile.
Okay, we can explain that probably at a later date.
We'll
But many people even texting in saying, what happened to this? We went from 2022 of a $2 billion surplus to a surplus of $99 million in 2023, and then 2024, $52.5 million. So you can see the trend was there.
Yeah.
It was going there. And it's interesting, as another person has pointed out during this show so far, you know how much the tax credit is for school choice? About $50 million.
That's true. That's
Get
true.
rid of that. They say they could solve that problem.
I don't want to go back to this because every time we report on this, we do. But the governor said if I thought we could afford $400 million, I would have done it.
Yep, exactly.
So here we are.
Here we are. That's how we got here. Thanks, Joe. Well, Election Day is over, but depending on where you live or where you might drive, you might not know it based on the campaign signs still standing out there, like blooming chrysanthemums in the fall. A little plastic monument to democracy, or rather procrastination. Ada County Highway District says, well, it's time to take them down. Candidates and anyone else who planted a political sign in the public right of way have 48 hours after Election Day to uproot them. That's the rule. That means they should be gone by the end of the day today. And if they're not, well, ACHD says they'd be happy to come pick them up for you. But if you want to get them back, well, that's going to cost you. And apparently we have a temporary sign policy in Ada County meant to keep sidewalks, medians, intersections from being cluttered for too long. So if you do spot a sign that's overstayed its welcome, like leftover fish or holiday house guests, just let ACHD know. It has been one headline after another. Tariffs, trade wars, and now the longest government shutdown in U.S. history. It's a ripple effect from D.C. all the way across the globe and a lot closer to home than you might think. Hunter Funk sat down with AG, or an ag economist, I should say, who breaks down all of what this might mean for agriculture here in Idaho.
Yeah, ag producers are used to the ups and downs. We know this.
Yeah.
But recently, there has been a lot to keep track of. University of Idaho ag extension economist Brett Wilder says the government shutdown is the latest one to create a ripple effect in many ways people don't really realize.
The big risk is, are people going to stop showing up to work? The headline I see a lot is air traffic controllers. What I think about a lot is, are the meat inspectors going to keep showing up? Are the people that allow us to both export and import agriculture products going to stop showing up?
Wilder spoke to a beef producer who's working on food-safe beef tallow, but can't get the final approval until all of the USDA employees come back. At restaurants and grocery stores, government workers aren't getting their paychecks, so they can't buy food, which is impacting the demand. Wilder says bankruptcy and delinquency rates are increasing, margins are thin for farmers, and the shutdown is creating one of the most unpredictable stretches that producers have seen in years.
If we lose ag producers, if we lose that revenue to the state, it's going to start breaking down communities. It's going to start affecting each and everyone's everyday life. Only that in the short run, we also have long run impact of more difficulty to access food, more difficulty to access food that you know where it came from, longer supply chains, more opportunities for disruption and inability to get what you want when you want it all the time.
The government shutdown isn't the only thing. Coming up at 6, we're going to dive deeper into the other issues that have created an unsteady market, like trade wars and tariffs. Brian?
I know with these government shutdowns, we always think of, and to borrow a different phrase, of like restaurant terminology, the front of house stuff, the TSA agents, like the SBA loans going away. But it's this back of house stuff that you don't see, the middle part, all of the red tape, if you want to call it that is also affected by this heavily.
I mean, yeah, and the prime example, right? We were talking about the beef tallow producer. That's not a shelf-stable situation, right? It only lasts a certain amount of time. It's also the holiday season, so not really a good time to have a product just waiting for approval when it could be on the shelves getting sold for the holidays.
Yep, and everything's kind of coming to a head. We'll see how that plays out, hopefully. All right, thanks, Hunter. We'll see you at 6. First week in November, and we may be just a bit past the peak of fall colors in the Treasure Valley, but that hasn't stopped people from getting out to check out what's left of autumn. And we caught up with several of them at Catherine Albertson Park today, right along the Boise River.
Best 40 acres in Boise.
I love the fall.
It's just so beautiful and peaceful.
It's pretty out, it's nice out. I would rather be cold than hot, I guess.
Perfect weather for walking.
It's accessible to everyone. I mean, if you look, there's a lot of senior citizens out here walking. There's a guy with an oxygen tank, and he's out here enjoying nature. Yeah, there were people with babies and strollers when we got here. So it's everybody.
Just the beauty, just being nature.
It's really pretty. There's a lot of water. There's a lot of different walking paths you could go on. It's just pretty.
I like the golden light and the days are slower like.
Trees, the colors, the
wildlife.
Oh, well, something happened here.
Seen deer, rabbit, and then you got the ducks, just a lot. Luckily, the geese are off the sidewalk.
I mean, the colors on all the trees are beautiful, and I like it. It's my favorite part of fall.
Oh, the colors this fall were amazing. Absolutely breathtaking. Well, you got the greens, you got the reds and the yellows and the browns, and just the whole palette.
I guess there's some good memories here with my family. We would always come here and take family pictures, so.
I can't believe it's in the middle of Boise. I mean, it's just this gorgeous spot away from everything else that you kind of gather yourself.
One of the most gorgeous walks that you could ever experience.
Just glad to be here. We've lived a lot of places, and this has to be the top of the list. Boise does parks right.
It's really cool. I love it.
If at first you don't succeed, try again. Payette County Sheriff is hoping that tactic will work after failing to pass a bond to build a new jail. And what if you could help cure childhood cancer, but you had to move to Kuna? Still worth it. Here's Richard Rodriguez with today's 411.
In Ontario, a 52-year-old man is under arrest, wanted for second-degree murder in Nevada. Police say a tip led them to the suspect in Ontario. When officers tried to arrest him, they say he tried to run, but was caught after a brief chase near East Idaho Avenue. The Ontario Police Department says they worked with multiple agencies to make the arrest. No other details have been released. People in Payette County will not get a new county jail after they turned down a measure in Tuesday's election. The $40 million bond failed to secure a 2/3 supermajority needed for approval in Tuesday's election. The current jail, built for just 69 inmates, is often overcrowded and faces ongoing maintenance issues, as well as security risks tied to the open recreation yard. Back in August, the Payette County Board of County Commissioners adopted a resolution to place a bond measure on the November ballots. If it were approved, the bond would have funded construction of a new jail to replace the aging facility located next to the Payette Primary School. As of whether the measure will return to the ballot, Sheriff Andy Creech says it's too soon to say.
It's too early to tell when we might bring that back. Really, we're just going to take some time to continue to meet with the public and talk with the public and just try to come up with something that we know that they'll support.
Officials estimate the bond would have cost taxpayers around $60 per $100,000 of taxable property value each year, and the proposed new jail would have been built on county-owned land near 7th Avenue North. Sheriff Creech says the county plans to survey residents to learn what they supported or opposed about the new bond measure. The timeline for releasing that survey has not been decided. The 2026 St. Jude Dream Home is officially under construction. Crews broke ground this morning at the site of the home. This year's home is in the Valor community in Kuna and again is being built by the Berkeley Building Company. This is the 14th year Berkeley Building Company has helped build the home for the St. Jude Dream Home giveaway.
Because Boise and the Treasure Valley is so generous, we have the largest campaign in the nation. There are over 35 St. Jude Dream Homes built across the U.S., and we have the biggest fundraising one in our little tiny Boise, Idaho.
The Boise 2025 Dream Home campaign raised more than $3 million for St. Jude. Tickets for a chance to win the Dream Home will go on sale next spring. Proceedings of the raffle go directly to St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. The hospital researches potential cures for children with cancers and other life-threatening illnesses and treats children at no cost to their families. You can watch the groundbreaking on KTVB+, and that's the 411 on the 208. I'm Richard Rodriguez.
Let's get to your comments. SK sending us a comment today. We've seen this one before. A lot of people pointing this out. A lot of Idaho farmers, he said, voted for Trump's policy. Had they listened, they'd have known these policies would hurt them. Too late to complain over consequences of their choice. I wonder how much money will be removed from the public schools. Too bad we will be spending $50 million on private schools, asked Jack in Boise when he talks about the budget shortfall. I don't know about schooling, but, you know, there's other things like mental health aspects of this that could be seeing cuts. Those kind of things might be seeing the cut first. If the state had $52 million offered for the Idaho transportation property on State Street, would that have been helpful in covering the state's fiscal year budget deficit? Just asking, says Dave Meridian. That's right. They did have a chance to sell it for $51.7 million. They shut that down in 24. And then appropriated $32 million to, I guess, upgrade it. Found out it's actually going to cost twice as much. So maybe, I don't know. We'll see tomorrow.
Continue with us and watch free now on the KTVB Plus app everywhere you stream.